Hey guys, plot recap here. Today I'm going to explain the movie The Longest Ride, released in the year 2015. All relevant links and information about the film will be in the description down below. Before we know more about it, you can support the channel by liking, subscribing, and activating the notifications. It's free and it really helps us to keep growing. Now let's dive in. The movie begins with the voice of a commentator at a rodeo competition. The bull's name is Rango. The bull seems aggressive as he is about to be let out of the cage. Seconds later, we see a man named Collins trying to ride the bull. The cage is opened and that bull starts toppling aggressively as Collins, the rider, tries to maintain his balance on the bull. Eventually, Collins falls off the bull and passes out. A year has gone by, and there's another rodeo competition event in town. A lady named Marcia is looking for her friend Sophia in the female dormitory. Marcia finds Sophia in her room studying. Marcia tries to convince Sophia to attend the event, along with other girls in the dormitory, but Sophia doesn't seem to be the outgoing type, as she's busy with her academic work, so she declines initially. Marcia presses her further to attend the event because she'll get to meet very cute guys. On hearing this, Sophia reluctantly agrees to attend. At the event, the bull riders come out one after the other to compete. Sophia seems to be enjoying the event as she is fascinated by the riders. It is now Colin's turn to ride. He tried to overcome the thought of the hurtful fall he had a year back. The cage is opened. Collins performs excellently and wins the competition. As he jubilates, a bull runs towards him. Collins runs for his dear life towards the spectator stand. As he tries to jump over the fence, his hat falls in front of Sophia. The bull is tamed and Collins stops running. He gazes at Sophia and turns back to return. Sophia calls out to give Collins his hat, but Collins tells her to keep it instead. At night, there's a party. Marcia seems to be enjoying herself as she's dancing and drinking. Sophia, on the other hand, is not flowing well. She sits at the bar alone. In the same scene, Collins is outside the party hall, standing alone. He soon attracts company as some of his mates congratulate him for winning the competition. Moments later, Sophia walks outside and unknowingly stands a short distance away from Collins. Collins sees her and starts a conversation. Collins offers to buy Sophia a drink as they walk into the party hall. However, their plan is interrupted when drunk Marcia steps out of the hall and Sophia has to take her home. A few days later, Sophia and Collins agree to go on a date. Collins comes to pick Sophia up in her hostel. As he makes his way into her dormitory, the girls drool at him. Collins takes Sophia to a serene riverbank and sets up a table. As they talk, Sophia tells him that she's from New Jersey, but got a scholarship to study in North Carolina. She also tells him about her love for art and asks Collins to tell her his story. Collins replies that his story is pretty simple and that he got hurt the previous year. Sophia informs Collins that she'll be moving to New York the following month, as she has been granted an internship job there. This news seems to spoil Collins' mood. On their way back, there is a downpour. Collins notices something unusual and reverses to check what it was. As he steps out of his car, he finds a burning car in the ditch. Collins hurries to save the driver and tells Sophia to call 911. Collins rescues the dying man, but the dying man tells them to carry the box in the car. At the hospital, the man is rushed into the emergency room. Sophia decides to stay at the hospital till the man is conscious, while Collins leaves. Moments later, Sophia opens the box out of curiosity and the contents begin to amaze her. The box contains numerous letters among other things, letters that the old man wrote decades ago. Sophia picks one up to read. It was a letter the old man wrote to a lady called Ruth. The letter explained how they first met. Moments later, Sophia was informed that the old man had regained consciousness. Sophia got into the man's ward and he didn't seem to remember that Sophia and Collins saved him. He also decided not to eat because he wasn't happy with himself. Sophia then offered to read the letters to the old man if he eats his food. Sophia then read one of the letters to the old man, Ira. The letter was about the first time Ira and Ruth spoke. Ira was so nervous to speak to Ruth that she had to walk up to him to create a conversation. As Ira walked Ruth home, she explained to him why she and her family moved to their city. They got to Ruth's house and Ira asked her to go out with him later. Meanwhile, Sophia asks old Ira if he wants her to read another letter. He replies by asking if she could come back another time. In the preceding scene, Collins has had a bad performance and he doesn't seem happy. He opens his drug and finds a letter. The next morning, Collins arrives home and meets his mom. His mom is not happy with the fact that he's still bull riding. She asks him when he's going to stop, but Collins replies that he can't stop. Meanwhile, Sophia visits old Ira at the hospital to read him a letter. She reads a letter about the first time Ira and Ruth kissed, how they went on vacations and spent time together, and how he proposed to Ruth. In the next scene, Collins visits Ira at the hospital and gives him a picture he found in his car the night he saved him. Seconds later, Sophia came to the hospital and met Collins. Sophia then read a letter to Ira about the time he had to leave for war. He came back from the war as a different man mentally. He had suffered an injury from the war that made him impotent, so he made up his mind not to marry Ruth. However, Ruth convinced him and they got back together. Meanwhile, Sophia and Collins decide to hang out and play games. They go to a bar where they talk about their lives. Collins admits that he likes Sophia because she is unique. Sophia replies by telling him he's not that bad himself. Sophia goes further to tell Collins that she hasn't been close to a cow before. They both agree to go horse riding the next day. Before they leave the bar, they go into a studio to snap photos, and things get romantic as they kiss. The next day, Collins takes Sophia to his field. He then teaches Sophia how to ride a horse. Later, Sophia accidentally falls into a ditch on the field and she has to clean up. They go to Collins' room where she opts to use the bathroom. Moments later, their feelings get heightened and they end up having a romantic moment. In the following scene, Collins teaches Sophia the basics of bull riding. We also see Collins excelling in different competitions as his rank improves. Days later, Sophia visits Ira in his care home. Sophia receives a call informing her that she has to travel that weekend for an art exhibition in another city. Ira then narrates how he spent his honeymoon with Ruth at the Black Fountain College. He also told Sophia about how they lived happily. That night, Sophia visits Collins and she has a nice time with his mom. She got to know that Collins' dad was also a professional bull rider and died of a heart attack. Collins arrived at the art exhibition just as he had promised Sophia, but Sophia seems to be too busy, so Collins heads to the bar in the art gallery and suits himself. Moments later, Sophia introduces Collins to her boss, Adrian. Adrian asks Collins what he thinks about the art exhibition, and Collins makes a negative remark because he is not an art lover. On their way home, Sophia confronts Collins about his negative remark. Collins tells her that he isn't sure how things would work between them. The next morning, Sophia visits Ira to seek advice. He narrates how things started changing with Ruth after they married. Ruth wanted a family. They tried to adopt a child, but it wasn't easy at that time. Meanwhile, Collins performs at a competition that night. He performs excellently, but he suffers an injury. Sophia hears about this and cancels her trip. When Sophia arrives at the hospital, the doctor informs her that Collins' riding days are over. In the next scene, Sophia visits Ira and informs him that she wasn't able to go to the art exhibition, and she also broke up with Collins. She asked Ira to tell her how things went with Ruth afterwards. Ira then narrates how Ruth couldn't cope with living with Ira alone and moved out of the house. But after a few days, Ruth came back and they lived happily till their old age when Ruth died naturally. Meanwhile, Collins arrives home that night and finds his mom sitting outside. He tries to cheer her up by telling her that he's ranked 5th in the world now. But his mom still isn't happy that he's bull riding. She also expresses her displeasure about the breakup with Sophia. Days later, Sophia receives a call from Ira's lawyers informing her that Ira has passed away. However, before his death, Ira requested that Sophia should attend the auction of Ruth's art collections. Afterward, it is time for the championship bull riding competition. Collins has to face the most aggressive bull in the tournament. He tries to overcome his fear, and he succeeds. After his performance, he feels unhappy and rushes out of the place. Meanwhile, The auction is about to start. Sophia arrives at the gallery and she's amazed at the quality of the paintings there. Collins also arrives at the auction and sights Sophia. When he sees how interested Sophia was in a particular portrait of Ruth, Collins bid for it and won. Sophia meets Collins and the two reconcile and make out. They're soon interrupted by an attendant in the art gallery. The auction master then informs the whole spectators that Ira instructed in his will that whoever purchases the portrait of Ruth should be given the entire art collection. Collins is left dumbfounded and astonished. The art collections were worth millions of dollars, which means he's now a wealthy man. The scene that follows shows Sophia in charge of an art gallery full of artworks. She walks to the car to meet Collins. They drive to their home and Collins reads her a letter. The movie ends as the couple take off their clothes, jump into the river, and start to kiss.